So for the song Bright Leaves, I'm using 3 different types of rods. This is a lightning rod because it sounds great on the cymbals when I have to go to the ride cymbal. And I have 2 cool rods. One's taped up just for a meatier sound, and I'm using 2 of them because on the record I did a lot of flamming and overdubs of on detuned snares with a lot of different mallets and sticks. So it's trying to replicate that. Also in my right hand, I'm using vinyl maraca that I play the toms with to play that deep maraca sound that I played on a bass drum on the record. And then I also have the hi-hat attachment here, the customized one that Ashwin made with bottle caps and uncycled percussion and seed pods. And I'm using Stevens grip here so I can get some sort of independence because I go between so that limits the shake on the offbeats for that. So for the song before us in the studio, I did a lot of different passes on bass drum toms, but mainly also the vinyl ethnic drums with the vinyl heads tuned low, and trying different flams and roughs and rolls on those. So to replicate that live, I'm using these ProMark drum set mallets that have a really nice weight. They're on a timbali shaft and they have heavy heads, so I kind of let those flop since I'm using Stevens grip on the head. Get that sound, so it goes kind of like a rough sound. I also use the hi-hat bells and attachment here of Indian bells that Ashwin Dipankar made for me to replicate the antique sleigh bells that I play in the recording. And of course the snare drum. Okay, the next song is 1.5 Stars. And this one's a tricky one to pull off live. I had to do a lot of interpretations of the songs on the record to replicate it live. So there's actually a drum machine pad there that I'll use the foot spot right here. And Ashwin comes up here and tapes some sandpaper. And then I play the sandpaper with one of my threaded rods that I put a spring on it to get that scratchy sound. I have a Roots EQ on the rack tom to replicate the dead tom sound I used on that. And then to deal with the tambourine overdubs, I have this vinyl jingle block that we just kind of tape and Velcro to the rim so I can play the snare drum normally or get more of a tambourine sound. And for this I used several different passes with a lot of sticks, so I taped together a couple spatulas that get a nice slap sound on the snare when I play it. So I'm going to play some different parts of the verse into the chorus, and then on the chorus I'll show you the graduated tambourine, how it keeps adding on to that. 1.5 stars. So this is Everyone High. It's a little more traditional beat. I'm using shaker instead of a ride or hi-hat. In the right hand, I've got some tambourine attachments, and I'm going from the verse to the chorus, and then I'll go into the end tag. So for the song White Wooden Cross, in order to replicate it live, I'm using a roots EQ on the floor tom. Since for the recording I played concert bass drum and toms, but I used ProMark latex marimba mallets. So with the roots EQ it gets a little more contact sound, a little less sustain to replicate that, and I'm using another one of the ProMark drum set mallets that they made for me over here. That doubles the bass drum. And then on the snare drum, I did a couple passes with a lot of brushes, holding a lot of brushes. So I've got two of the ProMark wooden brushes taped together, so I can also get a little bit of a rim shot here without bending the brushes. I'm using hi-hat with a shaker on it to replicate the shaker. And then I also played a small copper-clad cowbell overdub on the tune. So in order to replicate that live, instead of adding another one, since I have this great vinyl bell that I use on a bunch of other songs, I'm just using a cooking chopstick, a laminated cooking chopstick, because those are extra long, and holding Stevens grip for that, so I can get some independence between these two. They can hit together or separately. So this is White Wooden Cross. So this song's called Citizens. For the main groove for it, I'm using these mallets that ProMark made for me, drum set mallets, that sound great on the toms, and I'm using Stevens grip because I have to play a pattern where they play together and then separately. And this is a stick I rigged up with a timbali stick, a ProMark timbali stick, and I put this rubber coating over it from a stroller actually. It sounds great on the snare. The primary reason is because I'm also playing the vibra-slap, the vinyl vibra-slap, so it doesn't get that clicky sound, and then some various shaman bells and jingle bells over here. And I'm using the foot cabasa here to imitate some brushes that I did on the record, brush parts. So this is the main beat for Citizens. And here's Citizens with a different view. So here are some of the end fills that I overdubbed in Citizens and try and replicate live just by throwing in the left hand with the right hand ostinato. So for the song We Were Lucky, I get to employ a new instrument that I commissioned from Colin Campbell, and it was designed by him and modified by he and Ashwin Tapankar. And it's basically a marching machine played on a small SQ2 shallow drum hooked up to a remote hi-hat. And that sounds like this. And that's replicating on the record. I played it on a concert bass drum for a nice big, deep, intimidating tom sound. So besides the toms and the snares, I also have a hi-hat tambourine here for the backbeat. And my right foot is alternating between the bass drum and the marching machine. And this is the only song on the new record that I used samples on. I tried to replicate everything else acoustically for the live show, but it's such a unique sound, this drum machine crunch, distorted sound, that I wanted a sample of that. That sounds like this. And then I'm also using a thumb pop guitar pop that Jeff played on the record. For the chorus of We Were Lucky, I lay out the hi-hat for a little bit and play the marching machine a little bit more. And the end of the chorus, the reason I'm using the SD5 is because I have to get kind of a suspended cymbal roll at the end of that. So that goes like this. I ditch the marching machine, just go to the bass drum quarter notes and add the cymbal. So for We Were Lucky, the verse, I'm just switching between the bass drum and the marching machine here. So for Love Is Everywhere, I played a lot of brushes on this track. So I'm using the ProMark wooden brushes. I've got two of them together, so it's a little louder on big stages. And also I'm using the wooden brushes because I did a lot of tom overdubs, drum fills throughout the song, and I can flip this brush and get a good solid stick sound on the toms. Right hand, I'm using a ProMark drum set mallet because it sounds great on the toms, but it's also the balance and feel make it much easier to play some of the fills one-handed. I also use a vinyl foot cabasa to reinforce the brush part during certain times, and I have the hi-hat tambourine attachment up here as well. And I'll go between the foot cabasa and the hi-hat to play that part at times in the song. So for the song Hold Me Anyway, on the recording I played a lot of different passes of percussion parts, drums, and when I'm doing it live I have to come up with a composite part to kind of try and replicate and fit as much of that in as I can. So I'm using a lot of different things for this song. Let's start with this handheld marching machine. So on the record, I played a marching machine on a piano bench to get this kind of sound. So live, since my bass drum's playing throughout the entire song, I can't use my foot operated marching machine. So my friend Colin Campbell, who is a great builder of things and also has his master's in percussion and happens to be the son of my college professor Jim Campbell, he designed this and laser cut it, and it's a handheld marching machine. And he and Ashwin strung together my old Chromark drumsticks in here that kind of is the mini dowels, and I play that on an index percussion head. These usually go under the heads, but for this tune we're using it on top to get that marching machine sound. We also rig up a bungee cord here because the first couple times I started doing this, in the heat of battle, sometimes it hits the floor tom mic, so that prevents it from running into that. Also, I, at one point, just played a couple of the dowels of a marching machine on the piano bench to get a little almost castanet sound. So to replicate that live, I'm using the Sonar clapper box, wood block box. That sounds like this. And we just Velcro that on for this song and then put it back on. I'm also using from Out of the Drawer Percussion these prototype kind of kunga slap mallets. They're called crack shots. They just have a little more weight than the other commercially available kind of kunga mallets. And since I did play kungas on the record, I use these on toms and they get a great sound. And also, they sound good on the wood block where normal sticks just wouldn't work on that. It'd be too much high end. And I'm also using this great little attachment that Ashwin made. It's uncycled percussion Scrabble pieces, seed pods, and a bunch of Topo Chico bottle caps that he rigged together. We use a little stopper here so you don't get the clicking of the pedal board, and that replicates the seed pods that I used on the record. And I also have tambourine here that I slide in my Mino tambourine, and I play that throughout as well. So I'm just going to go through a progression of some of the parts that I play on Hold Me Anyway. For the song An Empty Corner, It's got a very sparse drum part. This is actually the only one that I sat behind a drum set for. So it's got the bass drum, but I also did overdub toms. And for that, I'm using, on the right hand, a ProMark wire brush that I've modified with some coins taped on it because I have to play the cymbal with it as well. And also, I'm using the wire brush with the loop back here because I have to do a cymbal scrape at certain points in the song. In my left hand, I'm using a ProMark nylon brush that I've modified with shotgun shot in the handle and some coins here as well to get a more pronounced snare drum sound. And they both are fanned out enough that I can get a nice swishing sound as well. And I'm using the Indian bell attachment as well, this time with the hi-hat for a little bit more presence. A little more definition with the hi-hat.